All right, folks, I'm showing 1 o'clock and we have most of you online. There's a few people that I didn't necessarily see in the participants list, so I'm going to call out your name, and if you let me know if you're here, if I missed you, if I looked over you. Carlos, are you online? How about you, DeAndre? Might help if I open up my chat box too, just in case. Dave Isley? How about you, Jerry? Did you make it in? All right, Malcolm? Bob Smith or Carl Steen? All right, if we come back around, if we have any votes today, I'll make sure to give you folks those folks another chance to let us know that we're here. Welcome to the January full board meeting for the SRS CAB. You've probably noticed we have a relatively light agenda today. I think we're in good shape. We'll be able to get through most of this pretty quickly. I'm pretty excited to be tackling some of these topics today. Some folks who may be joining us on the phone would normally be on the YouTube live stream. Unfortunately, we were having some technical difficulties and not able to get that live stream up and operating today. As soon as those resolve, we'll be able to post it. But we'll also be recording this meeting via WebEx, which means that we will have a recording preserved and able to post that on YouTube if we don't have anything else. I've double checked with our DDFO, Kelly Snyder, and she is fine with what we're doing today. She understands the technical difficulties. She felt it was important that we continue the meeting and that we make sure that we update everybody that we can. So we should have some more participants on the phone today, at least listening in, and I'm excited to have everybody. So welcome. Thank you all for attending today.
James, this is Amy. We are getting some email from folks that are trying to get on the live stream. So I just sent a note back and said that we were having some technical difficulties and that we would, I would get back to them. So do I simply need to let them know that we're recording it and that we will post it later?
You can do that, or if you want to share the call-in information with them,
Okay.
they can call in and join us today.
Can you give me the call-in number?
It should be in that invite that you got just a few minutes ago.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. So let's start with the opening. Jill, do you have anything that you want to share with us today?
I always have to call in, right?
Join us today.
James, is that rule?
It should be.
And you're frozen on my screen, so you kind of look funny right now.
All right. Thank you so much.
So, welcome to 2021, everyone.
All right.
And we have hit the ground running, as we saw last week. You know, SWPF is gone to hot commissioning, so we're moving forward. We're doing some great things. Those of you that have been involved in the committee meetings, I thank you. The committee meetings have been some good conversation, and we're going to talk about some charges today that the Department of Energy and Environmental Management want to hear about from us. So we'll be discussing that pretty robustly. Greg has done a great job of leading those conversations. Greg has really hit the ground, in this and really dug in. So thank you, Greg, for all the work that you've done and continue to do. And I look forward to a good discussion today. Please, as always, voice your opinions, voice your concerns, voice what you want, because if we don't hear from you, we don't know what's going on. So please, actively participate in the meeting today, and I love to see all your smiling faces, those of you that could actually be on the WebEx. If not, I look forward to hearing from you. James, that's it.
Thanks. And I will say, especially to you, Amy, who may be still responding to folks, Federica got it up online, proving yet again that she earns every dollar that she's paid. And so if they refresh YouTube, they'll be able to see the stream. It is up and running. I know I made the exact same face. I just, up under the table. So we're very excited to get that back up at exactly where we need it to be. So covering ground today, we do have a little bit that we need to do. We have some agency updates to cover from DOE, EPA, and South Carolina DHEC. That was a mouthful that it shouldn't have been. If we need to, we'll take a short little break. We'll see where we stand with everybody. We'll do a round robin. The committees, by and large, haven't had a whole lot of activity over the past month. But if you do have anything that you need to update, please feel free to let us know then. And then we'll go into some board discussions. We'll talk about some charges that came out of their most recent chairs meeting that Gil and Greg attended. We'll talk about the work products that need to go into the next chairs meeting for them. Is there any questions? Oh, and then we'll take a vote so that you can approve what they're going to take to the chairs meeting. And we'll thank a few people for their service on the board. Are there any questions about the agenda today? Hearing none. Let's dig right in. First things up, we have the Doe Agency update. Mike Budney, are you ready? Are you online for that today?
Yeah, James, I'm here.
Great.
Good afternoon. I think we last met November 30th, so I got a few things to update everybody on here today. But before I start that, I want to personally thank Dan Kaminsky, Julia Ball, and Tom French, who are their terms of services with the CAB are expiring, and we want to thank them very much. The commitment and the service of the CAB is very important to us. If we just operated within the site boundaries down here and we're not having this ongoing information exchange with the community, we could very easily diverge in our opinions and diverge on the facts as to what's going on. We're all South Carolina, Georgia residents down here. We're part of the community, and so we need to stay in touch with the rest of you who aren't on the site every day but are also part of the community. I learned long ago that constant communication is important. We used to run these drills when I was a radiological controls officer on a ship over in Scotland, and what I found was that as my team, that we're all in close proximity. We could basically see each other. But if about every 10 minutes you didn't stop and inform everybody during a casualty what the next steps were going to be that you were going to take, it only took that 10 or 15 minutes and people started diverging off and going in different directions because they all had their own opinions about where to go, and the thing would just fall apart. Now, we only got to talk every 10 minutes, but quarterly is good to make sure that we all stay informed of what's going on, that we get the facts straight and pass factual information to all of you. And so your willingness to come and participate this on a volunteer basis and keep us in touch with the community and ensure that we're giving you good information is a valuable contribution to what we do here. So I appreciate it very much. Each of you will be receiving official letters and certificates of appreciation. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Moving right on to COVID. Obviously, that's a big topic everywhere. Our rate of contracting a virus here among the workforce mirrors what goes on in the general population. I think we've got about 205 active quarantine cases right now. That doesn't mean they're all COVID cases, but there are 205 people on quarantine either because they've got a positive test or they've been in contact with someone who has a positive test, things of that nature. So we got a lot of things in place to make sure that it's safer at work than any place else you could possibly be, to make sure we don't have intra-site transmission of the virus. And all those things seem to be working pretty well. The president has put out a new executive order, which we're examining. They put it out end of last week, and there's more guidance coming over the weekend about what we need to do to enhance those precautions that we're taking for COVID. So we're looking at our processes right now and working actively to make sure we're in compliance with all that new guidance that came out. We remain in the same phase one that we've been in since late last spring. But our contract workforce has done a superb job, and for fiscal year 20, they were able to accomplish all the major mission activities that we had laid out despite the COVID by aggressively working to figure out how to get the work done and keep people safe on the site. So that's been working out pretty well for us. But it is a serious illness. We've had some folks pass away from this virus, so we take it very seriously. You never know how it's going to affect people. We've certainly seen people with almost no symptoms to the very worst. So, fortunately, the very worst ones are few and far between. But everyone means something to us, and we're very sorry for those families where things didn't go well. So we're going to keep our guard up and keep working and make this place a safe place to come to work. Okay, going on to contract items. As you know, we awarded the Savannah River National Lab Management Operations contract in December. We didn't receive any protest for that award, and so we're working on getting ready to do the contract transition. Battelle Memorial Institute leads the Battelle Savannah River Alliance, LLC, which is the organization that won that award. So Battelle's operated labs across the DOE complex, and they're well known to DOE. So we believe it's going to be a great partnership, and we're getting ready to move forward with BSRA just as soon as we can get all pieces in place for that contract transition. SRS is also partnered with us. They're ready to go, so should go off pretty smoothly here. Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative, as you know, Congress gave us the first $25 million in last year. It's in the appropriation for 21. Don't quite have all the money on board yet, but it will come during the course of this year, and then we'll be able to move forward on Advanced Manufacturing Collaborative. We're all set with the lease with Aiken County Commission for Higher Education and the University of South Carolina, Aiken. So the next thing is going on to get a contract in place for someone to design and construct AMC. And both the integrated mission completion contract and replacement contract for the site maintenance operations are, those solicitations are proceeding per schedule. A couple of words about the budget. FY21 budget was signed into law December 27th. Worked out, we got our budget request. There was some shifting of money around, about $60 million moved out of liquid waste and into other areas such as nuclear materials and land management. So we're working through how that may cause us to adjust our expectations for the liquid waste program for this coming year. With that appropriation in that category, that's less, but it's good for the nuclear materials and other programs. Can get some stuff done that we also need to do there. So overall, fiscal year 21 budget pretty favorable for us. Fiscal year 22 budget, normally you get passed back on a budget right after Thanksgiving. Didn't occur this year with the election, change of administration, so that's typical for it to be delayed, so we can get the new administration's input on it. Normally supposed to be released to Congress the second week in February, I believe. We anticipate that'll be delayed too. So we're just standing by on the 22. But we are already beginning work. In February we'll begin work a little earlier than usual on the fiscal year 23 budget. So as normal, work on 3 budgets simultaneously. The one we're executing, the one we're getting ready to execute, and the one 2 years from now. Program update. First, nuclear materials. HCAN, you may have seen an announcement that earlier in the month, NSA announced the completion of the Target Residue Material Campaign. So that was a 4-year campaign to move highly enriched uranium from Canada to H Canyon for disposition. These were liquid materials, byproduct of medical isotope work done at the Chalk River laboratories in Canada. We received 115 truckloads of liquid HEU, over 6,000 gallons. Absolutely no problems. Very successful operation. And appreciate the hard work done by everybody to make that happen. That project was recently recognized with the Secretary of Energy's Achievement Award. So well done to all the folks involved in that. And regarding another item originating in Canada, the NHL resumed play on January 13th. So we're glad to have them back. and I no longer have to search Netflix for something to watch in the evening because there are 6 to 10 games on every day. It's great. So, also, H and K and L area continue to process spent nuclear fuel and receive and store spent nuclear fuel from domestic foreign reactors. We hope to do something there to help accelerate the processing of spent nuclear fuel based on the plus up we saw in that area of the budget this year. So we'll keep you apprised of how that goes as we continue to work in that area. K area downblending operations for the surplus plutonium are proceeding as planned. They're working to schedule, so doing good work there. And we continue our activities to deactivate building 235F, where the plutonium-238 work had been done in the past. Liquid waste, as Gil said, salt waste processing. They started hot commissioning October 5th, and they finished it. And we started the first full year of operations on January 18th. During hot commissioning, they processed over 300 gallons of salt waste, and then we made the first transfer into the system from the tank farms on January 18th. So our target's for 46 million gallons of waste this year. That would require a lot of effort. Of course, it's a brand new system, right? A lot of things to work out, but it's been going pretty well so far, and it does process the waste as advertised. We did a capacity test recently as part of that hot commissioning, and the capacity test came up in spec at 7.7 million gallons. Later on, when we implement the next generation solvent, we should be able to increase that number too. So, well done to that team. That'll get us way down the road here on processing liquid waste. Saltstone disposal units, construction continues on track. SDU 7 will be finished this summer, well ahead of schedule. SDU 8, the floor is nearing completion, and we started work on the walls and columns. And we'll resuming work this spring in SDU 9 with installation of the upper mud mat. So 3 of those tanks being worked on simultaneously, and Congress provided the funding we needed to do that as we requested. So we appreciate that. We also had to do get a safety documentation approved that allow us to actually fill the SDUs to their full 42-foot height. So we have approved that. Took care of some minor issues there so that we could use those SDUs to capacity. Over in defense waste processing, report 11 canisters in 21. Still working the double stacking in the glass waste storage building number 2. We have double stacked 1,164 canisters. In the end, that building will hold 4,522 canisters. There's an engineering study that was completed for double stacking glass waste storage building number 2. That's complete. So it looks like we're going to be able to double stack building number 2, and that'll give us another nearly 4,700 storage locations and prevent us from having to build a third glass waste storage building. So that's a great move to save funds for the taxpayer and give us the space we need to get through this whole program. Solid waste program, they got 2 true waste shipments to WIP this fiscal year, which is great. They did a really great job in the solid waste program. When there's been aberrations in the schedule at other parts of the complex, they have been called at the last minute to see if they could fill the schedule for WIP, so we keep WIP at capacity, and they've answered the call every time, so they've done a great job in that area. Soil and water cleanup. Despite all the challenges of COVID, they've managed to meet all the scheduled regulatory milestones and commitments, including 9 federal facility agreement milestones in November and 4 in December. So well done. And they got over 500 environmental permits. They maintain compliance on it simultaneously, and they've really done a good job of enhancing our ability to make sure we keep all those environmental permits in compliance. As you know, they've automated the system at the site, and we've also participated in the electronic system with DHEC. So some pretty good advancements there to make sure we keep all those permits up to date. Did our annual deer hunts, 288 deer, 48 hogs, and 12 coyotes harvested this year. So well done to those folks that are keeping that safe and helping us keep the deer population under control. The Ford Building, 690N facility, deactivated and demolition was completed in October with a facility acceptance inspection on October 29th. So that was great. Demolished down to the concrete slab. We also completed an action to neutralize acidic soil and protect groundwater at the former site of the 48417D coal storage area. Basically, coal had been used for the powerhouse for 59 years. There was some leaching into the soil that had driven the pH down to 3 in that area by mixing some powdered limestone into about 4 foot depth out in that whole area. We corrected the pH back to, or pH, not PhD, the pH back to 7. So I'm sure we had the help of some PhDs in correcting that pH to get it back to 7. So well done to folks out there and getting that deer area groundwater taken care of. And of course, fiscal year 20, a remarkable year for the laboratory. Remained at the top of safety performance charts, all the national labs, medicine, customers' expectations, and now we're getting ready to transition to a new lab contract. They've over the years since I've been here, they have continually expanded their portfolio, and they're up to about a $420 million portfolio for fiscal year 21, which is great. So they're doing just a superb job of accelerating the operation out there. So subject to your questions, those are the notes I had this morning to go over.
All right. So any questions from the board? No? Nobody chomping at the bit to follow up on that?
Well, hey Mike, it's Gil. Since no one's asking any questions, I had a few. Do we know, can you share with us what the amount is of the Patel contract?
Well, the Patel contract is, it's a little different, Gil, than other contracts. So their portfolio this year is $420 million. So that includes some money that we use for base operating, keep the HVAC up to speed, that kind of stuff, right? And that usually runs about $50-60 million a year. But then their other work, it really comes from their customers. They get that contract money because SRS says, hey, lab, I need you to do this, or NNSA says, I need lab to do this, or other entities outside of DOE bring in business. So there's not one funding source for the lab. The money comes from all kinds of different sources. So there is no line item funding for the lab. They have to get their work by having good rates and providing the service that customers need. So it's a little different than other contracts.
So that kind of answers probably my second question. The AMC will be funded through the M&O contract?
Well, when it's an operation, yeah.
When it's an operation.
Right, and so we have a construction line item. There is a direct funding line to build that. There's a construction line item, so DOE has to build that facility.
And lastly, on the FY21 budget, that shift of $60 million, was that done at Washington or was that done at a site level?
That was Congress. Our budget request, when I say the shift, no, our budget request was different. And what came back from Congress was when the $60 million got shifted.
That shifted from liquid waste. Okay. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, Gil. Any other questions from the board? Going once, going twice. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
Okay.
Up next, we have EPA on the agenda. John, I see you're here today. Hey.
John Richards, EPA. Obviously with any administration changes, we'll have changes in our regional office, Region 4 office in Atlanta. I think most of you know, obviously, the administrator has been appointed by the president, but it takes a while for the regional administrators. They're all public appointees. So there's 10 regions, so you didn't know EPA, Atlanta being number 4. So usually within the first year, we'll get a political appointee. But in the meantime, there's a lot of acting, a lot of movement around, of especially SES or top-level federal managers. So turns out Carol Manell, who was over our Superfund division since last January, actually. She'd been in Superfund many, many years and moved around. Had a record for a while. Well, she's now our deputy regional administrator. That's not acting. That's actually, I think a lot of us thought it was acting, with everything else being temporary right now. So she's already moved up to that. And some of you may know Randall Chafin. He's been our deputy Superfund director for many years. He's now in our acting role as our Superfund director. So that's our current changes. Some of you also may know John Belevins. He was actually on the detailed Oak Ridge from our Dallas office. He was actually over the Superfund program in Dallas for EPA. And they went on a 2-year detail with Oak Ridge DOE. And actually formerly was actually in our Region 4 office way back was just a simple project manager like me back in around 2000. But he's now our acting RA. So he's, again, not a political appointee. He'll be acting as our regional administrator. He has been over our Athens lab for the last year or two since he was done with the Oak Ridge DOE detail. So that's some of our management changes. Obviously, maybe more as we get along here, or more permanent positions. I don't have too much other than we're obviously very, very, very excited that SWPF is now, looks like, full operations, and so we're excited about and of course we're already encouraging new schedules and getting on board with hopefully accelerating some of the tank closure. So I'm sure some of those meetings will be coming up this year. And I think other than that, I don't think I have anything else unless there's questions.
All right. Does anybody have any EPA specific questions for today? No, Dan's shaking his head no. He's like, I'm following along. I'm good. Anybody else? No? All right. John, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Up next, we have DHEC. And Susan, I see you're here. You ready?
I am.
All right, let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've got a few DHEC updates for you today, and then after I run through mine, I'm going to turn it over to Grace Ann for an update on Esop. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. It's great to see you. The first agency-wide update that I have is that in December, the DHEC board announced the selection of Dr. Edward Simmer as appointment as the new agency director. The director is selected by the board for a 4-year term, but it has to be approved by the governor and the Senate. So that step hasn't happened yet, but we anticipate that to probably finish that process in the next few weeks. Also wanted to give you a COVID update. As you know, we're in phase 1A of vaccine administration, and that includes healthcare workers and anyone over age 70, as well as state and local government employees who are involved in COVID testing and COVID vaccinations. So if you fall into one of the categories in the 1A phase, you're eligible to get your vaccine now. And DHEC has a vaccination locator on the webpage. And if I can share my screen for a second, I'll show you what that looks like. Here we go. Okay, so if you go to the DHEC page, DHEC.gov, you'll see the yellow banner at the top. And of course, this is where you can go to find a testing location, which I shared with you at our last meeting. But now you can find a COVID-19 vaccine location as well. So if you click on that link and then the find a COVID-19 vaccine location here, this will bring up a map locator that looks an awful lot like the locator for finding testing sites. So I'm gonna close a few boxes. As you can see, it looks like a Christmas decoration here, lots of red and green dots on the page. The green dots are gonna represent the locations where you can get a COVID vaccine. The red squares are locations that do not currently have any vaccine available. So I just want to point out that this map changes a lot. What might be a red square today could be a green dot tomorrow. And hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more green dots on here as we move along in the next few weeks. But I also want you to be aware that if you, this map shows you where you can get the vaccines. This is not a site currently where you can register for a vaccine. So you can click on it and it may take you, for instance, let's just click on one. Here's a Kroger pharmacy. You can then follow the link to the Kroger vaccine sign-up information, but you won't be registering through DHEC on this page. It will take you to another site. So in some cases, it will provide you a website that you can link to and get signed up. In some cases, they may not have a website that it links to. It may just give you a phone number that you can call to get that information. But this is a great resource, and please keep checking back. Hopefully, we'll be opening it up to other phases once we get through the 1As quickly. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. Let's see here. Okay. And if you don't have access to the webpage to find the vaccine locator, you can also call our CARES line, and that number is 1-855-4-SC-DHEC. So you can reach out to them as well for COVID information. Okay, now I just want to move on to soil and groundwater updates. DHEC, EPA, and DOE recently completed the review and revision process for our lower three runs integrator operable unit proposed plan. So this is a document that will be coming out for public review soon. Just as a reminder, a proposed plan is going to outline the range of remedial alternatives that were evaluated to clean up the site. And then it will outline the proposed remedy for that cleanup effort. So that is all of the soil and groundwater updates. And now I'll turn it over to Grace Ann, and then when she's finished, we'll open it up to questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all in the new year. You all may already be aware from an email from James, but we now have our 2019 annual Esop Report up on our website, so you all can feel free to go and look at both our raw data, which you can download and manipulate if you would like to, as well as our full report with updated maps and results from this past, or I guess 2 years ago. So we always, for those of you who are not aware, we always have a report year behind, so that we can go through that information. And we are continuing to do virtual outreach opportunities. So if you or any of your community members would ever be interested in having outreach about Esop or other DHEC topics, feel free to reach out and either provide them my information or get them in touch with me. But James, I think you have been able to send out the link to the Esop report. Is that correct?
I have a really strong memory of doing it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If anybody can nod and say, yes, I saw that, that would help.
Yeah.
Yes, Delisa says she saw it.
You can also go, you can also go to the scdhec.gov website where Susan just showed us, and type in ESOP into the search bar, and it should bring you to our website that contains information about the report. But thank you, and if you have any questions, I guess, for either Susan or for me, feel free to go ahead and ask those.
All right, any questions for DHEC?
Yeah, I do. Jim Gill.
Go ahead, Jim.
As far as vaccinations for COVID, is DHEC in charge of or providing guidance to various locations as to how to reserve a quantity of vaccine so that second shots will be possible and that the material will be available?
Make sure I understand your question. So you're asking if information has been provided from DHEC to the sites that are administering the vaccines? Or are you asking general information to the public?
Well, somewhere somebody is deciding how much is going to various locations to be put in arms. Is there a process or a guidance provided by DHEC or some other entity as to how to hold back, reserve, or plan for the second shot vaccine needs?
Okay, I understand your question. There is a vaccine advisory committee, and they meet fairly regularly. I think they had a meeting last week, and that has been live streamed to the public. So I believe that the information you're looking for is probably discussed in that meeting. There is information available on our website. When you go to the vaccine, if you click on the link at the top of the page about the vaccine, there's a lot of information about vaccine facts and questions that people may have. And to address the specific question about how vaccine is being withheld, I know that yes, that there is vaccine being withheld so that they can do second doses, but that's going to be, specific questions would need to be addressed to wherever you're getting the vaccine administered, how they handle that.
Any other questions for DHEC?
Yeah, this is Dan. Hey, I just wanted to give some kudos to DHEC because I was I think the only one on the advisory board that had COVID, but the testing at your facilities was absolutely stellar. I did one of the subcontracted ones with less than stellar results, but I got my before Christmas retest, not positive, but a negative come back, and it came back quickly. And the site that we stopped in some rural town on the way to Charleston that day, just absolutely run fantastically. The nurses, the staff, your QR coding process. I was almost hoping to hear that your vaccines would be going the same route because it worked very, very well. So hats off to all you folks that made that happen. It certainly was a great success.
Well, thanks for that feedback. That's great to hear. And stay tuned with the QR codes and the vaccine process. Hopefully we'll have something like that to roll out soon.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else for DHEC?
Hey, James, Mike, I got one question. So,
Yes, sir.
on the vaccine 1A, is there any estimate on when we go to the next phase, to the 1B, and based on, because I thought all the personnel, at least the emergency personnel, who were 1A were required to register to get the vaccination by January 15th, so I assume that was so you could estimate how soon you would get through vaccinating all those folks. And I don't know if there's any kind of estimate based on the rate you're receiving new vaccine and how many people you got left in that 1A category.
I don't know that. Since that's not my area of expertise, I have not heard specifically where we are in that. I do know that you can look on our website and get updates of how many vaccines have been administered. I'm not sure that we have on that page it broken down by age category. I can do a little poking around to see, but yeah, I think we're trying to get the information out as quickly as possible, and you're correct that we asked people to register by the 15th of January if you were in the healthcare worker sector, so that they can move along as quickly as possible to other phases.
All right, anything else? Okay. Thank you very much, Susan and Grace Ann. We appreciate you both. Thank you. All right, up next, we have a break schedule according to the agenda, but we're running about 20 minutes fast. Yeah, Narendra's on the same page I am. I don't think we need to do that. We can keep going. So with that, let's run into the committee round robin. I don't think this will take us very long either, given where we left things off at the end of last month. We'll just go in alphabetical order of the committees, and we'll do A&O last, though, because I think she has a couple things to update. We'll start with Narendra with facilities, and then go to Charles and nuclear materials. Narendra?
Good afternoon and Happy New Year to everybody. I don't think I have anything to report on this committee.
That's what I thought. All right, moving on. Charles, do you have anything for nuclear materials? I'm not hearing anything. All right, let's just move on down the list. We can come back if we have to. Jim, are you ready? Do you have anything for our strategic and legacy management?
A couple things to go over. In November's board meeting, deal with a couple of the items that were on the 2020 work plan, which was good. Looking ahead, there are at least two items, one dealing with carbon footprint reduction, the other one dealing with the infrastructure, particularly the solar area, where we will hopefully pick up the items. And I see that in early February we have the work plan meeting, and so I'm sure we'll be discussing those items then. And of course, we have the integrated priority list, which will need to be worked on as well. So it looks like we have a few things to do, but nothing that's going to be earth-shaking yet. So that's it.
And on that note, I'll go ahead and remind everybody, because Jim brought it up, yes, February 10th is the board's work plan meeting. That is primarily going to be for the committee chairs and vice chairs working with the points of contact. Board members, though, don't feel like you are left out by any stretch of the imagination. If you have topics that you think are important, please send them to us. Let us know, and we'll be happy to pass them on to the appropriate DOE folks. We'll see if it'll make a good fit for the CAB schedule and see what we need to work in. Okay? So again, if you have any topics that you won't think are important that you want to see, make sure you let us know about them so that we can get your voice heard. Up next will be waste management. AK? I know I saw you earlier. Again, we can come back if we have to. Bobby, do you have any words for administrative and outreach? Oh, you look like you're muted. Let me see if I can help you out there. Oh, no, you're unmuted. I can't hear you, though. Anybody else hear Bobby? No. So I know that we have, Bobby, you may need to look at the invite and call in via the phone just so that we can hear your voice. But I know that you had a couple things that you wanted to talk about today, and one of them was the membership applications. I'll just let you all know they're still currently at headquarters. We don't know anything about the renewals or the new members yet. As soon as we find out, we'll get to you. And then, or we'll be sure to let you all know. And I believe you also want to talk a little bit about the chair's charge today, and that's number one. We'll be dealing with that shortly. Charles says he's on the phone. He spoke, but we can't hear us. Again, maybe I'll ask you to hang up and call back in, Charles, and let's make sure that things are working because we definitely want to get you heard. So with that, we will call that for a moment unless you have any questions for committee chairs.
Hey, James, this is Delisa. Were you going to also announce the information on the cab chairs?
I thought about it, but I thought it might be more fun to just leave it a secret. No, I originally planned it for the end of the day, but I don't see why we can't do it now. The election results, so thank you to every cab member who cast a ballot. Everyone was unanimously reelected, so Narinder, you'll be with FDSR again. Jim, you'll be with Strategic and Legacy Management. AK, you get to helm Waste Management for another year, and Charles, you get to lead Nuclear Materials. And Bobby, you'll be leading A&O once more. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you.
James, it's AK. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, sir. Do you have anything for Waste Management?
Yes, I apologize for my technical difficulty in fading in and out. Just want to wish everybody a happy new year and thank all of the committee members. We didn't meet very much last year, but we had a very progressive year in that we want to thank all of the people that was involved with the getting the SWPF online, going through the hot commissioning process, et cetera, and now it's fully operational, and also with the SDUs, and with those two state-of-the-art technologies, we'll be able to reduce the waste in those tank farms a lot more rapidly than previously, and as a result, that certainly bolsters DOE's legacy in terms of waste removal. So just in that regard, just want to thank everybody that was involved in that and all of the committee members and my colleagues on the cab. Thank you very much.
Thanks, AK. Charles, I saw a phone number duck out and then come back in. Are you back?
I'm here all along.
Awesome, great. Did you have anything for Nuclear Materials? Yeah, go ahead.
No, we have not met. As we stated at the last time, there was something on the agenda about 235F. That recommendation was accepted several months after we sent it in. It was actually a very rapid process. But with that, we have not met. So I just wish everybody a happy new year.
Thanks, Charles. We appreciate it. All right, so let's roll into the next element, and that's going to be the discussion of the chair's charges. And again, I want to thank everybody who participated in the discussions a couple weeks ago about those. So we held a couple of committee meetings. A&O met to discuss chair's charge number one, and of course, as I'm sure you all saw in the email invites, everybody was invited to attend. We didn't quite have a full house, but we did get a lot of great input and discussion on that. We did get some clarification on a couple of things, one of which there was a question at the end of that, whether or not the list going forward needed to be a full list of every outreach activity, or if it needed to be a shorter list that Gil and Greg can use as a discussion tool at the chair's meeting. And the DDFO did let us know that that needed to be a shorter list. It needed to be something that would be a good discussion document, give them a good basis to work off of. It did not need to be a full list of every outreach activity on the site. She also let us know that they're still working on a good definition for what a best practice is. So we'll hopefully be able to have that set aside as more input for Gil and Greg when they take your feedback to the chair's meeting. But for right now, you're going to have to use your intuition as far as what a best practice means to you. And that is basically what we have right now. So let's start with chair's charge number one that came in and the feedback from that. I know that the shortened list went out at the end of last week that has all the data from the people who, so at the end of the A&O meeting, we didn't have a firm set of our list of 10 best practices. We asked everybody participating to send in their list to us. A few of you did that. Thank you to those of you who emailed in your top 10 list. We compiled that together, came up with a top 10 for the whole board to consider, and you got that last week. So are there any questions about that or the charge that we need to cover today? No? Okay.
James, this is Greg Murray. May I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely, Greg.
So this is the discussion part, and we're actually going to vote on it in a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So just some general thoughts from my perspective on having to do this, particularly since I'm going to be partially responsible for talking about it again at the chair's meeting. I think there's some other information that we need in terms of definitions. Yes, best practice would be helpful. There were some other issues, though, in terms of, what does outreach actually mean? Because it has a variety of meanings. One meaning is it's just one-sided distribution of information. There's another meaning that it's, dissemination of information and feedback from the people you've sent it to. And then there's another, there are all kinds of definitions, but then there's one, does it affect public opinion on the information that's being distributed? And without any clarification on what that means, it's very difficult to rate these things. There's also, once you get beyond that, what kind of information is being shared? I thought it was, somebody brought up, is a scholarship outreach? Because that was listed as, and I don't know. It depends on what you, again, it comes back to what you think outreach is. And then also it comes back to what you think, what the information is that's being shared. Is it, you look at the EM mission, it's to complete the safe cleanup of the environmental legacy resulting from, nuclear weapons development and government-sponsored nuclear energy research. So when I was doing this, I kind of went through and made a list of, I don't think that, so some of I disqualified activities because I thought, they don't really do that. I don't know, for instance, how giving scholarships to, site employees' kids really tells that story necessarily. So, but that doesn't mean that wasn't what they intended to be covered. And then finally, in terms of best practice, and I guess you addressed this briefly, we really need to know sort of what was the objective of the communication, how many people did it reach, how much did it cost? Is there some things you can do that cost a lot and reach a lot of people, and there are other things you can do that don't cost much but still reach a fair number of people? So hopefully, I don't know what we're going to come up with. If you send out the rankings, I'm interested to see what the rankings are and think about it a little bit more. But I think there's a lot of more thought that could be put into this to make this a more useful tool.
Sure. It is. I'll say just as an aside that the usefulness of this to the department, the tool itself, really kind of was in at least locally within the comprehensive list. I know it was neat to be able to see a full collection of what all the site tenants were doing. We had a pretty good idea of all the stuff that was going on, but I'm not sure that everybody really realized just how much was being accomplished in terms of that. That's not to say that there aren't a variety of different measures of outreach, like you pointed out, Craig. I think it's great. Count on the quantitative researcher to pull it out and start looking at all the different definitions. I love it. So I do. So I think you raise a lot of interesting points. Anybody else have any comments about this?
Dave Lavakis. I was disappointed that we weren't able to identify any outreach activities that were performed by the CAB. We were only able to identify those that were associated with DOE and the contractors. And I think there are several functions that the CAB performs that are, I would say, in a broad definition of would be included in outreach.
Yeah, I can't remember if the people who sent us input after that meeting included anything. Heather, can you pull up that top 10? And let's take a look and see what was included.
I did add some line what Dave is talking about, that our approach at bus tours, and we go to Aiken University to make a presentation, which Lisa organizes that annually. And I think we do talk about something else in the public, like Gil Bigman has done, giving presentation to Rotary Club and Lions Club. I did add that line in the red in my review. So I think they are important, and I think we should consider them.
Yeah. And a lot of those are great outreach tools for advertising the CAB. And a lot of this actually needed to focus on outreach activities that told the EM story, that talked about environmental management. So what the rankings came out with was, number one was public tours. It's there in the chat for anybody who wants to look. Meetings with chambers of commerce / economic development. And again, this was no particular order. This was just out of the top 10. Social media, the CAB is listed there. Outreach sponsorship of events by all areas of commerce, mission related, tours, the Heritage Museum, news releases, engineering teach-ins, and public meetings. And that's what it came out with, from that massive 60 some odd list down to this 10 from the rankings that we received. And again, like we talked about the other night, exclusion on this list doesn't mean a lack of endorsement of the activity. Like Greg was mentioning, a lot of things like a scholarship are great good neighbor activities, but may not necessarily tell the story about what the site is doing. If you're looking for activities that tell what the site is doing, then you might come up with a list similar to this, but it doesn't mean that other activities should halt. And it's definitely not an endorsement of that, or dropping anything.
Hey, it's Candace Cave.
Hey, Candace.
I think it's important to note that engagement and outreach are not the same thing. A lot of what we have listed are engagement activities, and outreach is a part of an engagement strategy, but they are distinctly different.
Okay. Any other thoughts about this?
This is Greg. If I may ask a follow-up to Candace. Candace, so what differentiates the two? Is it the feedback when you talk about engagement versus outreach? Is it the feedback from the audience that distinguishes the two?
Oh, you're muted, Candace.
Engagement can be any activity or interaction that involves or engages a community or a population. As far as outreach, it's normally where, for example, the CAB would go to or reach an audience that we wouldn't normally reach. So a little bit different, meaning that we're going to a population and we're informing them of something or we're sharing something with them, versus giving a scholarship. That's more engagement.
Gotcha. That's an interesting distinction. Okay. Thank you very much. And by the way, I do recognize I have seen this list, so thank you for that. Sorry I misspoke earlier.
No, it's okay. I know it went out late last week. Maybe not everybody's had a chance to check their email, so I'm glad that Heather pulled it up for us so that we could get a good look at it. So is there anybody that feels like they cannot live with this list, and that it must be made?
James, can I, Dave Vavakis, can I speak on this? And I know you want to get this off our plates, but I'd like to move that we postpone the vote on charge one for two reasons. First, until staff comes back to the CAB with additional clarification on such terms as best practices and outreach from the DFO. And I understand this is in progress. And then the second is that the staff and outreach committee and potentially the full board have the opportunity to identify the outreach activities performed by the CAB. None of those were on the original list, and none of them made it onto the final list. So far, we've not recognized any of the CAB's outreach activities.
Again, this isn't outreach for cab.
James, can we see if we have a second on that, or do you want to?
Well, I want to make this one point because we've heard it a couple times again today. And this is something that I've tried to steer us in and make sure that we understand is that this is not a list of board outreach. All of the CAB's outreach is about the CAB. This is meant to be a list of outreach about EM. There's a reason why you don't have anything listed here that specifically just CAB members do it, because you don't do any EM outreach. We don't ask you to do that.
Well, I think we did as a column on the template that was.
Boards might do that.
I think just that, in the full board and the committee meetings, with the questions we ask, we disseminate information to an audience that extends beyond what currently may be available via other sources, and then the recordings of the meetings that we have available on the CAB website and on YouTube. I think they provide outreach information. And I know I volunteer as a docent at a museum in Aiken, and I get a lot of out of town visitors, and they are always asking me about what's going on at SRS. That's one of the main topics of information, and I consider that to be outreach. And if you play golf, there's a lot of information that you can provide in those type of outings, social gatherings, church work.
Some of that would be really great and interesting stuff. I wish that you would have included it on a list and sent it in when we asked.
Well, we talked about it at the outreach meeting, but the list was already organized by the time we had gotten to that meeting. So, and I think we did talk about it at that meeting.
Yes, you talked about it at the meeting, and we asked you to add things and rank them.
Okay.
Well,
there is a motion on the floor. You're right.
We were also
Is there
waiting,
a second?
and if I could, we were also waiting for some information to come back from staff regarding what was the definition of best practices and outreach. So,
Gil,
we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. That's what we're doing. We were asked to go back. Greg and I were asked to come back to our prospective site-specific advisory boards and have a discussion and come back with talking points. There's been some verbiage in the charge that has led us off into different ways, different rabbit trails, or whatever we want to call them. I'm going to say, and I'm on a public record here, it is fine. These two charges are the brainchild of somebody stepping in that is from Nevada and just kind of said, oh, this is a good idea, let's do this. That's the extent of what we're doing here. And we've spent an hour and a half on one night on a call that we could have gone to 3 hours. The next night we were on another call, we could have gone to 3 hours. And we have another charge to take up, which is even more opaque. I don't know if that's correct, but we are making a mountain out of a molehill here. And I understand the wanting more clarity. It's not coming. More clarity is not coming because they've sent this back to the individual CABs to come up with talking points of what can we do better. And we are taking this into an area that, and I know that Greg and I are the only ones here, and James and Elisa and Michael and Amy and Mike who get to go to these meetings. Other people will get to go too. It's not as big a deal as what we're making it. So I respect your desire for a table motion. I respectfully disagree with it. Let's just go forward. James, back to you.
Okay. There is still a motion on the table, and I'm going to have to ask if there's a second. unless Dave wants to withdraw it based off of Gil.
James, this is Greg. May I say something in regard to the motion?
Yes.
I guess this comes. Let me frame this as I did the task, but I think my ranking is virtually useless. So that's my perspective on that. Without further information, I just don't think it's meaningful in any way. Now, speaking to the motion, I would like to have more information and try to do this right. But if there's not enough time to do it before we have to go to that chairs meeting, that certainly affects that thought on that. The second thing is, if Gil's right and we're not going to get any more information, then we might, there's a lot to be said for just going with what we've got, and just to get the task done and be done with it, I guess. Is it your opinion that we're not going to get any more feedback on any of this, James?
In terms of the outreach activities, I don't know. I can't say for certain. I don't know that we're going to be able to get line item costs for each event.
Not even in terms of the definitions. And
yeah, Greg, let me answer that. This is Delisa. I have been in touch with their DFO on this. And besides her just saying that it could be intuitive, best practices and outreach, we could just take this as, what do you think they are, right? But beyond that, they are meeting in a couple weeks to just talk about overall the April SOB meeting in general. And so they're going to take parts of it, and this is one of them. Because I just told her, talked to her last Friday, that our cab is struggling with wanting to put together a good product, and we're just, needing a little bit more information. So I would say that Dave, you're right, Gil, you're right, and Greg, you're right on your assumptions of what's going on. But right now, as far as getting more information to make it a better product that you'll feel good about, we can be open to that. I can't not, you've got a motion on the floor, so.
But Lisa, this is Gil. I think what you just said is perfect. Dave's asking for guidance, Greg's asked for guidance, and the answer we got back is, well, it's intuitive. That's the guidance we're getting. Be intuitive. So basically, they're giving us not even a broad brush. They're using a big paint roller and saying, just go with it. So, yeah, that's kind of my thought on it. Going back to them again, we've got the answer. It's intuitive. And our board doesn't understand what intuitive means. And that's okay.
So let me ask you this, Gil and Greg, you're the two that are going to have to deal with this at the chairs meeting, and I think that's going to be an interesting place to have some of those discussions if you don't have broader answers. But here today, the task is to give you two a tool that you can use at that meeting. Do you want to proceed with this, or if we do happen, we might have time in March, but if we don't, do you want to take that 60-some-odd list and work with that in a broad meeting?
I would much, and those of you that were on the committee calls for these, and I know we've talked about these charges, I'm not a big fan of these charges. I brought up many of the same complaints and a lot of the problems with it, as so did Greg when they gave them to us. Wherever we were virtual or wherever we were when they gave them, I don't remember. And I asked for, what do you want? Dave, very much what Dave's asking. What do you want? And so we could go back with three points. We could go back with 300. We have no idea if this is what we're looking for. Unless Greg has, better insight than I do, which she often does. It doesn't matter. I didn't mean to share, to be this skewed toward, in my thoughts because I don't want to skew the board. But as I shared with the committee, this is to me virtually an impossible task because there is no right way, there is no wrong way, there's no leadership on this. It's intuitive. Do whatever you want. Come on, we have 9 different boards around the country that are being told, intuitive, do what you want. We're just going to have a jumbled mess when we come together. Let's be real. I mean, when Greg and I go to that meeting, it's just going to be Hanford took it one way, northern New Mexico took it one way, Paducah took it one way, Oak Ridge took it one way, and Savannah River took it another. So whatever this board wants to take forward, I'm good with. I would much rather have a smaller list instead of sitting there, well, what next? Because we'll have the same conversation at the site-specific advisory board meeting. Every site will go around, well, we have 60, and we'll sit there and read off all 60. And then we'll have, ooh, that's a good idea. How do you do that in New Mexico? I feel everyone's frustration. So, Greg, I kick it to you.
Hey, yeah. So this is Greg. Are you saying you'd like to have a list even shorter than 10? Is that what you're saying? Or you just like? I would like to
have 10 or less, but I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go, Greg.
Okay. This is what I would propose at this point, and then it looks like Candace wants to begin. I would propose let's go on ahead and delay. If we don't get any feedback and change anything, then we just go with our list when it's time to go with our list. If they give us some feedback that we can use before the April meeting, we can use that information and try to improve our list if possible. And if not, we just go with the list we've got. So I would second Dave's motion, but I don't want to preempt what Candace is going to do. I don't know how that all fits.
Candace, what do you think?
This is Candace Cave. I had just a clarifying question. So the 10 that we ended up with, those are basically categories of the other 60 that were listed on the spreadsheet?
Not necessarily. They were really the people who participated in that, who gave us feedback. They ranked 10 of the lines, and then we did the math to figure out which ones were the top 10 and put them in order.
Okay.
So let's say this, rather than do a full, go ahead, Dave.
Well, this is Dave. I just didn't want the meeting to be dull today, but I'll withdraw the motion.
No, I mean, hang on. Ruth, what do you think?
If I could just ask a couple of questions here. First off, to minimize the list down to the basically top 10.
Sure.
I think the approach was very good. It's almost like the categories that I saw in the list, like public education, the media. It's really that 60 is boiled down into these like top categories that can hold many elements. If I can ask this question about the charges, who wrote these, or who wrote them? They're coming from home office, basically, or?
They came from headquarters, and there's a lot of different voices that go into those. So I don't know that I can definitively say exactly who wrote it, but I can say that the DFO, the person in charge of all the boards at headquarters, did approve them and send them out.
Okay. And then question number 2. In the charge number 1, they are asking to develop best practices white paper. Is headquarters going to do this, or is Gil and Greg supposed to be doing this?
So that's a great question, and that leads into a point that I wanted to make. So just because we whittle it down to 10 doesn't mean that that's actually what's going to make it into the white paper.
I agree.
Because the white paper is made by the chairs and the vice chairs who will write that together. And realistically, just from a logistics purpose, probably 2 or 3 hands will go up at the chairs meeting. They'll volunteer to write it together, and then it'll come back, and it'll get pieced together that way. They'll try to take all the feedback. And then what happens is once the chairs approve it, then it'll go back out to all the boards to approve as a white paper.
Okay. And so that was kind of what I was trying to get my arms around, in that they're using best practices white paper in one subject to me, and that's okay. And, an end result of a white paper, of course, is a public document. This is something that will be used for marketing out to the public, this white paper that is finally produced by all of the chairs. And the audience for a white paper is generally the general public that's seeking a solution to their questions about Savannah River or any one of the sites. And white papers have become popular marketing tools to the public, especially because of the use of the internet, and since many people are searching for information on the web. So I can see our 10 topics or our 60 topics categorized. Jill and Greg will present them. The chairs are going to decide then where there's commonality, so that they can write a audience paper to the public that would kind of cover all of us. But
let me stop there. So the board, not even the MSSAB, writes documents like that for the general public. Yes, just like your recommendations are posted online and accessible, the audience for the chair's white paper will be DOE.
Okay.
It will be delivered to headquarters.
So I think, this is my opinion, I think that either you take the 60 in your back pocket and you have the topic 10 with you to present to start the conversation, because they're looking for, I think, an end result. You said EM, I'm trying to understand. Okay, EM is going to write the white paper best practices as to what is this public document going to answer the questions of the public. That's going to be the end product as I see it. I think, I'll stop here and to say that I think what we have done here, the 10 from the 60, I take both, I think it'll work fine. I think that input into those meetings, Gil and when Greg go, I think they'll work fine. That's my opinion. To this white paper that somebody's going to write.
Yeah, and again, it's like we talked about the other night. It's not like these guys go in a vacuum. We have all this research documents that sit around with us when Gil and Greg go. So in the middle of these meetings, Gil will text me, hey, I need this. And if he wanted the full paper, we could give him the full list if he needed it. And that's something that we have always done. I get more texts from Gil during a chairs meeting than I do any other time. And it's all information requests. So
I think the best practices white paper is basically one topic. That's what we're trying to create or give input to have created. So thank you for listening to me.
Of course. So Gil, you look like you're about to say something. Did I misread you?
No, I was on mute and I was just saying those are great questions. No, that's all.
Okay.
I was talking to myself to a computer screen.
And then I made you say it out loud.
Yeah, it's fine. James and the rest of the board, I apologize. I mean, I'm going to stay on the meeting, but I am going to get pulled away at some point in the next 15 minutes. So if I disappear, either the meeting will have ended or I'll be back.
Okay. So with that, let's take stock. I mean, Dave, you kind of sold a couple people on the idea of tabling this and got some support, and then you backed up. And since you've unmuted, I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I was just looking for a quality product. Gil seems like he's comfortable with the list, and I know he's a capable speaker. So let's just withdraw it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about chair's charge number 1? Anything that we need to talk about before we press on? Parting thoughts? Okay. Do we want to move on to the discussion of chair's charge number 2? No one seems excited about that, but we're going to do it anyway. So, chair's charge number 2 is basically asking you asking the board, what do you see as the end state of your site? There were a couple of different ways to approach it. You can look at it from just talking about individual programs, or you could define something for the whole site. Gil, as he mentioned earlier, had a few issues with this one. I think he used the word vague. I hesitate to repeat it without him being here, but we all agree that that was how he characterized it. Greg, you were part of that discussion earlier and with the executive committee discussing it. Do you have any thoughts that you want to share with the group?
Thanks, James. This is Greg. Not in particular. I think we have a lot of the same concerns, or I do at least, when we were working on it and talking about it and all that, as we did with the first charge. I think what we've done is fine. I understand the difficulty of what we were asked to do, and I understand the different perspectives on answering it. I'll be interested to see what everybody comes up with in the end. I appreciated the discussion on it. It was great to see everybody involved. Like the first charge, we can go and talk about that and defend it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the list. The first list, and I don't think there's anything wrong with what we've done here. Are they the best products that most effectively address their questions? I'm not convinced of that. But we can go do it, and we will have completed our task, and I guess that will be sufficient. So other than that, no, I don't have anything to say on it.
All right, Heather, can you pull up the template that came back for everybody? For chair's charge number 2, if you don't mind sharing that spreadsheet. So this one was interesting. Like I said, it was basically asking for a site description of the end state. And man, I can't see that because my new prescription hasn't come in yet. There we go. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Let's do one box at a time, if you don't mind. So let's look at A2 or A3 up there. The description of the site activity that needs to be completed. So rather than take a program by program approach, which was an alternative offered, the folks discussing this last week or 2 weeks ago really just wanted to hit the site as a whole, because our site is big, is complex, and trying to list everything would be an even more big and complex task. I will say I thought that this discussion was going to be a bit more divisive than it was. Y'all really caught me flat-footed with how quickly you all agreed with chair's charge number 2. And so this went out last week, again at the end of last week, for the board members to take a look at it. And there was this description here for the site activity that needs to be completed. And it was basically the definition pulled from the congressional budget justification. Does anybody need me to read this, or have you all seen it? Greg's nodding. Yeah, I've read it. I'm cool. Anybody else?
You go ahead and read it, James.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
So it's the end state of the Savannah River site will be the elimination or minimization of nuclear materials, spent nuclear fuel, plutonium, and waste through safe stabilization, treatment, and or disposition. All EM-owned facilities will be decommissioned once work scope is complete. Waste units will be remediated. Contaminated groundwater will either be remediated or undergoing remediation. Units where residual materials are left in place will be under institutional controls, comprised of access restrictions and land use controls. Inspections, maintenance, monitoring, and remedial measures / corrective actions as appropriate. Land that can be safely returned to the public will be. So that was the definition that they set up. That leads us into the next question on this particular charge, and is what does completion of this activity mean to the SSAB? That's the board here. With the removal and offsite disposition of EM nuclear material and waste hazards, the remaining hazards at SRS will be orders of magnitude less in quantity and risk than the current hazards. Any residual hazards to on-site and off-site receptors will be significantly reduced to an acceptable risk level that is protective of on-site and off-site potential receptors and consistent with environmental laws and regulations. And if we can scroll over, I'll read the last one there. How would the SSAB like to see DOE-EM interact with local stakeholders, communities to reach the completion vision? DOE should continue to communicate program information to the stakeholder communities through a variety of methods and multimedia tools in a collaborative and meaningful way to help surrounding communities take action to protect their health and safety of families. This includes continuing public outreach efforts by SRS. All right. So this was the piece pulled together for Chair's Charge 2. Are there any questions or comments about this document?
Yes, James, this is AK. Can you hear me?
I can, AK. Go ahead.
Yes, unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties as I'm having today, but when we had the chairs meeting and I made a statement and I wasn't able to participate thereafter. But it seems to me with the significance of the SWPF and the SDUs, that those are at least at a minimum two very significant ways as to how we are to go about addressing EM. And the statements that you just read, while they point to, as you indicate, the processes and the conclusions, it doesn't in any way indicate how those things are
Okay, you cut off there at the end, but I think I got an idea of where you were going. Heather, can you scroll back over to column A? So I believe AK's point there, yeah, there we go. AK's point there is that we talk a little bit about the what, but maybe not the how. Looking at the charge there, and Heather was kind enough to copy and paste it into the chat for us. Is that something that we need to add, the how we get to the end state? Or is just a description of what the end state enough? Do we need to go into more detail than this? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I'm okay with it as it reads.
Okay, Jim's good. And Gil was shaking his head. He likes it too, as is. How about this? Does anybody disagree with it as is? Can you live with it and support it? Or is there anything in here that keeps you from doing that? All right. I'll ask one last time, are there any changes that we need to make to this document before we proceed to the next steps?
James, this is Greg.
Yeah.
Maybe look at the third section again real quick.
Yeah, sure. Heather, can you move over to C3?
Looking at it, I guess actually the next to last sentence. I guess the first sentence. DOE should continue blah, blah, blah in a collaborative and meaningful way to help surrounding communities take action to protect their health and safety of families. That seems a little awkward to me.
Okay.
To protect the health and safety. The community, I don't know, or just to protect their health and safety.
The other families make it weird, doesn't it?
It seems needs something else, I think, if it's going to have families in there, or you can take families out, is what I would think. But we specifically added the family comment, so maybe we just need to wordsmith it enough to make it fit in there appropriately.
Any suggestions from the group?
I think, James, I agree with Greg. The family word should be removed because once we talk with the communities, that includes everybody, workers. So family word should be removed. I agree with him.
Okay. Everybody good with striking out families? Okay. Anybody dissent? I love dissents. No dissent today? Not on that one. All right. Any other comments or concerns about this? Any other wordsmithing we need to do? All right, we'll make sure to strike end of families before we send this out anywhere, since that's the only change that we're making. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. Next thing up on the agenda is the reading of public comments. We have not received any prior to the start of the meeting. Just as a general reminder, we will be accepting public comments up till I believe it's a week after today, and those will all be added to the minutes. So when you to the minutes, that you do read double check the public comment section to see if anything has been added and has come in since then. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Are we ready to go into voting for the chair's charges? All right. Let's go ahead and go into voting for chair's charge number 1. That's that 10-piece document that just gives Gil and Greg a framework of what you folks think the 10 best or 10 outreach activities worth fighting for. And remember, they'll have the whole list, and we'll try to get them some more support information to try and help them navigate that discussion a little bit better when they get there. We're not just going to send them in cold. This isn't the only thing that they get at the chair's meeting. We'll get them more data. Is there a motion to approve this? Made by Narendra. I saw his hand go up. Is there a second? Okay. Phyllis and Ruth both waved in, at the same time. So we'll both give you extra credit for that. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through everybody's names, so it'll almost be like a roll call. I'm going to read in alphabetically by last name, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and give me a yay, nay, or abstain as we move through. I'm going to start with Gil and then go to Julia. Gil? Probably had to go take his call. We'll get his vote later. So let's go to Julia and then Phyllis.
Yay.
All right, Phyllis and then...
Yay.
All right. Carlos, were you able to join us?
Hey.
All right. Candace and then DeAndre.
Yay.
All right. DeAndre, were you able to join us? All right. Dave Isley. All right. Jim and then AK.
Yay.
AK and then Charles.
AK is having technical difficulties.
All right, we'll get him later. Ruth and then Dan. Ruth?
Yay.
Dan and then Narendra. Dan?
Yay.
Narendra and then Jerry. Narendra?
Yes.
Jerry and then Greg. Jerry?
Yay.
Greg and then Malcolm. Greg?
Yay.
Malcolm, were you able to join us? No? Okay. Ken and then Bob Smith. Ken, were you able to join us? Thought I saw you earlier. You can put it in the chat if need be. We'll come back if we need to. Bob Smith or Carl, were you folks able to join us, gentlemen? No? All right. Dave Avakis and then Bobby. Dave?
No.
Got it. And then Bobby?
Yay.
All right. Motion passes. All right. Chair's charge number 2. The surprisingly less contentious discussion. So chair's charge number 2. This was that 3-part document that we were just discussing. I'm going to go through the exact same process again, like a roll call. I'm going to skip Gil because I believe he's still on his call. We'll come back to him if we have to. Julia and then Phyllis. Julia?
Yay.
All right. Yay. All right. Phyllis and then Carlos. Phyllis?
Yay.
All right. Carlos and then Candace? Okay. Candace?
Yay. Yay.
All right. Skip down a couple. Jim?
Yay.
All right. Charles and then Ruth. Charles?
Yay.
Okay. Ruth, and then Dan. Ruth?
Yay.
Dan, and then Narinder. Dan?
Yay.
All right, Narinder, and then Jerry. Narinder?
Yay.
Jerry, and then Greg. Jerry?
Yay.
Greg?
Yay.
All right. Skip down a couple. Let's see. All the way down to Dave?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And then Bobby.
Yay.
All right. Anybody whose name I did not call who has not voted? Okay. All right. The motion also passes. So any other questions, comments, and concerns before we start to wrap up today?
Hey, James, I did have some questions coming out of those.
Sure.
One of the points had mentioned a virtual tour that was going to be done by the end of last year. I didn't see it on the website. Has that been completed?
Yeah, it's out and published. It's on the YouTube page. They've been getting some fantastic feedback from it.
Okay. Okay. Is there a link on the tours page? Because that's where I kind of looked intuitively and didn't find it.
I don't know, Amy. Have they linked to it on the tours?
I don't know if we did, but that's a good idea, Dan. We actually put it on the site Facebook page and advertised it there and in a number of other spots. But that's a good idea. I'll double check. If not, we should.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Look for it. I don't do Facebook, so. And then just one other question came out of it. How much land, if any, has ever been returned to the public from SRS?
Are there any DOE experts on the line who happen to know the answer to that question, or do we need to get back to Dan?
Hey, Mike here. Yeah. I don't think very much. There is a little spot over there in Barnwell. We have an industrial site on it's on the eastern edge of the site that was, but most of the rest of it, I don't believe we have, because unlike some of the other sites, we're not actually designated to return land to the community use. It's pretty difficult because the documented safety analysis for all the ongoing facilities out there overlap a lot of land. But we do look at it. We do get requests from time to time. We do take those seriously, and we have a process by which we go through to look at those requests to see. And we have a new one now we're looking at right now. We just started the process. So, but there isn't any scheduled because our NSA is going to stay here, continue working after we leave, producing tritium is the plan right now. So, pretty tough to turn our land back over. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So with that, let's go to the next phase. And there is a tradition at the end of our January meeting when we have outgoing board members, and that is basically to give them an open platform. So Julie and Dan, now is the time to give any parting last words before we have to say goodbye to you. So if either one of you would like to say anything, now would be the time. Julia.
This is Julia, and I've enjoyed meeting everybody on the cab. It has been very difficult this past year for everybody, I think. But I think you all have done a wonderful job with the virtual meetings. I think that's been very good. It's sort of difficult when we're not used to virtual meetings, but we're all getting more used to them, and thanks for that education. But I've enjoyed it. It's been good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. We do appreciate it. Dan?
Well, first off, I'd like to say thanks to my fellow cab members and DOE for the opportunity to be on the cab. It's been a great learning experience for me personally. And if anything, it's really shown me the great efforts that DOE and the other agencies at the site are acting in the best interests of the South Carolinian and Georgian public. I appreciate that very much. I'm only a few miles as the crow flies to the site. So needless to say, having a cleaner site versus something that we were all left with to take care of is far, far better. Also would like to say that I'm sorry that my chosen recruited replacement has taken a job at Amazon, is going to move to Seattle, so she's out. But I wish everyone the very best and wish everyone a very safe time as we work through, hopefully, the end of this COVID period this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Any last questions, comments, concerns before we start our closeout? No? Okay. Greg, since Gil is AWOL at the moment, we're going to have to turn to you to end the meeting for us.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. James, can you remind us when is the next meeting?
It's going to be in March. That is the next scheduled meeting for a full board meeting, but the work plan meeting will be February 10th. So thanks for another reminder. If you do have feedback on what the work plan should look like in 2021, please let us know so that we can get your input incorporated.
All righty, great. So everybody, hopefully get that on your calendar so we can get some more good work done. Thank you, everybody, for a good meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in some of these more challenging tasks we've had to accomplish, but we pushed them along. It looks like we're going to persevere in the end. I hope everybody stays safe and well, and thank you for a good meeting. James and staff and folks, thank you for all your support of us, the information you provided to us, and we enjoy working with you, and we'll see everybody, I guess, in February, if not before. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Before everybody hangs up real quick, can I get one more second? This is Susan.
Sure, Susan. I'm sorry, I missed your hand there. Yeah.
That's okay. I just wanted to let y'all know that tomorrow there's a DHEC board meeting, and they'll be discussing vaccine allocation at that meeting. So that is tomorrow, January 26th. It's at 1 p.m., and it will be live streamed. To access it, if you go to DHEC's webpage, scroll down to the bottom, there's a press release from today announcing the board meeting, and click on that, and it will take you to the live stream. That's it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you.
James, I see you're still on. Can you give me a call when you get a second? I want to, the